What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 3 tips that every wide receiver should know. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how you guys can get separation off the line against a more patient DB. Then we're going to talk about how you guys can get separation against faster DBs that are bigger than you by simply having a plan and being able to sell vertical. So I hope this video helps you guys out. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you struggle with what to do in the gym during the offseason and you struggle with what to do on the field in the offseason with specific exercises, drills, how to split up those drills, the exact sets and reps, whatever it may be, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. It is a 2-month daily schedule with the specific gym exercises and on-field training drills all wide receivers need to do. We break down everything with sets, reps, and we give you an instructional video and an example of each exercise and drill. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope you guys can check out that program, very first link below. Let's get started. So now, first things first here, this is going to be something we call a wide step release. So the first thing that every wide receiver needs to know is that a DB is only going to move if we force him to move, right? So many wide receivers, they'll come off the line, they'll try to do all these different releases, they'll maybe try to be too fancy with it, and they operate lateral. They never attack vertical. They're never threatening a DB outside of his frame, as I like to call it. So a wide step release is a great example of that. So Diggs, let's play this full speed. He's going to be running kind of like this drag concept, I guess you would say here, because he gets this ball fairly late. This could be for a slant, this could be for a 5-yard in, or just any kind of inside breaking route. But Diggs is lined up at the top of the numbers. So a smart DB will probably expect, some kind of outside breaking route because he's at the top of the numbers. But a good scheme, a good offense can run either or. They might be able to run this drag. They might be able to run a 10-yard out from this specific alignment. So this DB is shaded a little bit to the outside, right? So if he's shaded to the outside, a great release to use is a wide step release. You threaten his leverage. You attack his leverage outside to try to hold him there so you could take the free inside release. Now, he's not going to hold his leverage. He is not going to move to the outside unless you step right here. Look at where Diggs is lined up. He's lined up at maybe about half a yard from the top of the numbers, and he ends up stepping towards the middle of the numbers. That's called throwing your hip, and that's called stepping outside the DB's frame. You want to think of press releases like you are driving a car. You got the far left lane, you got the middle lane where the DB is, then you have the far right lane. Now, if you want to get that DB to move to the left lane, you actually got to step to the left lane because he's going to be watching your hips. So a lot of guys, they'll just step lateral, but they think giving a little head and shoulder fake is going to get this guy. That's not going to get him. You actually have to threaten him vertical. You have to step vertical. You almost want to think of it like your hip and your foot are attached. Because when I say this, step outside the frame, what a lot of people assume is, oh, you're stepping too far. You never want to step that far. You want to keep everything inside your frame so you have more speed, you have more balance. And that's 100% correct. You don't want to step too far, but you have to step here to sell it. So you want to think of like your hip and foot are attached. You want to throw your hip, sell with your hips and your shoulders, not just giving a little lean with your upper half. And that's what will force that DB to at least hesitate. And if he could hesitate, I could take a clean inside release. No different if he was lined up inside shade and you would want to threaten him inside. You would want to step outside the frame, actually threaten his leverage to get him to move off of that thing. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Diggs threatening vertical, getting that DB off the platform, and then taking a good inside release right there. Great overall route. So first thing every wide receiver needs to know, fellas, is that to get off a press, you have to threaten a DB's leverage and step outside of his frame. So now, second thing that every wide receiver needs to know is that your pivot step when you snap down is how you eliminate wasted time at the top of the break. So everybody talks about this is going to be a comeback route here from Ja'Marr Chase. Now, everybody talks about, oh, you want to get out of the break in the least amount of steps possible. It's not about steps, fellas, because there are some guys that could get out of a break in 5 steps a whole hell of a lot faster than guys can get out in 3 steps. The key is to eliminate wasted time at the break point. How much time can I cut out of my break? Because again, if you could take 5 steps faster than 3 steps on a break, you're going to be out faster than the next guy who's taking the 3 steps, but he's slow. What a route comes down to is selling vertical and eliminating wasted time. So your pivot step on the break will do that. So let's talk about this. So this is going to be strictly for comeback routes, curl routes, and maybe the occasional dig route. So a lot of wide receivers, they know about dropping their hips. They know that if you're familiar with this page, you definitely know. But when you run a route, you have to always be selling what? Always be selling fade. You got to always be trying to get this DB to think you're running vertical. You got to run at a good pad level. You have to be in full speed. You have to be running in full stride. That's pretty repetitive. We talk about that in pretty much every single video. Now, when you get into this break, a lot of guys are familiar with this. They call it snapping down, dropping your hips, pretending there's like a string attached to your chin and somebody's pulling that string down straight to your knee. That hip drop is how you decelerate. But after you decelerate, how do you get out of this thing quickly? And that comes from your second step. I call that the pivot step right here, because that will get your hips turned. So many wide receivers waste so much time at the top of the break because they'll snap down, and then their second step, they don't pivot that toe. That toe is pointed forward, then their third step is pointed forward, then they pivot, then they hook, then they take 2 more steps. And it turns into like 7 steps at the top of the route, 5 to 7. That just quite frankly takes too long when you're taking that many steps. Like I said, steps don't matter, but that pivot step is a great way to limit yourself to probably only 5 steps if you can get your hips out. And if you could take 5 steps quickly while selling vertical, guaranteed you're going to get some separation. So when you pivot this step now, what does your third step have to do? Naturally, it's going to hook around. And when that third step hooks around, you drive off of this. And maybe you take 2 extra steps like Chase does right there. That's completely fine. Maybe you get out in 3 steps. That's fine. But that pivot step will put your hips in the position to be able to get out of the break. I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys kind of get where I'm coming from on that. Because like if you're running a curl route, for example, you would snap down with this outside leg. Second step would pivot. This third step would hook around, and then you could drive out of the break. So making sure that we hit that pivot step after we drop my hips is a great way to eliminate wasted time at the break. So second thing you have to understand is that pivot step as a wide receiver. If you can snap, pivot, hook, you will get out of the break a lot quicker. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Now, one other thing though, fellas, guys get so caught up in pivoting that they will start to turn their body before they snap down. We don't want to do that either. You want to snap down first, drop your hips with that trigger step, then pivot your feet. Do not start to pivot your body. Do not start to pivot your feet before the break point, because if that DB's watching your pad level and he sees it start to turn before you drop your hips, that is an indicator, and we will be slow at the break. That is what I'm talking about. Guys will start to turn. They'll start to turn before the break point. They'll get out in 3 steps. It'll look super clean, but that DB's all over them because you wasted time trying to pivot your body, not selling vertical and not eliminating wasted time. You tried to eliminate steps. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Chase pushing vertical here. Great job not giving any indicators on the route and letting that pivot step get his hips turned, not manually turning his hips to the side of the break. So now, second thing I want to talk about here is leverage. So we get a ton of questions, fellas, every scenario you could think of. And you know what? I appreciate all the questions because it 100% helps me stay on my game and know what to work with, the guys that I train, what we work at our camps, what we can post videos on. And the main questions we get asked are a lot about like types of DBs. Hey, coach, how do I get off a DB who's in off coverage outside shade? How do I get off a DB who's in inside shade? How do I beat a physical guy? How do I beat a patient guy? And it all comes down to the third thing that every wide receiver needs to know, and that's having a plan. So you got to have a plan of action, and you got to know what that plan of action, you got to know what plan of action will work going into a game situation. So it all comes down to football IQ. That's why we make a lot of these videos, to help you guys understand where the other side of the ball is coming from. So whether he's inside shade, head up, or outside shade, he's got a specific leverage, right? He's lined up inside, that's inside leverage. He's head up, I wouldn't call that leverage, but he's like head up, that's what I would say. And then if he's lined up outside shade, he's outside leverage, right? So we know that he's lined up in a specific leverage besides head up. We'll talk about that in a second. Inside or outside leverage. He's there for a reason. He's there to protect that leverage. He does not want to let you get outside. He does not want to let you get inside. So that's when you have to attack his leverage. That should be the plan that you have of action. Now, there are different scenarios that you can do on this. So let's say this DB's lined up a little bit outside shade. He's got outside leverage. So this wide receiver's having to run a post route. Let's talk about it. So he comes off the line and he's attacking the leverage, gives a fake to the leverage of the DB to get him to widen and makes that play down the middle. This could be considered like a very, very skinny post. It could be even on a fade. But when he's outside shade and we attack him and we fake to the outside, he is taught, because he's outside shade, do not give up the outside. Whatever you do, don't get beat on an out route, a corner, a fade, a comeback. You are outside leverage. Force everything to the inside because that's where you have help. When he's outside shade, that means he's got safety help or some kind of help over the middle. So if he's trying to force you there and you threaten him there, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to widen, and that creates a bigger window for you on an inside breaking route like a post or a dig or a skinny post, maybe a seam. So that's how we have to organize my plan. I got to know a lot about his leverage. So let's say, for example, I was running and he was outside shade, and let's say I had to run like a 10-yard out. What I would do is, instead of attacking his leverage, I would try to get his hips to flip, because we know that he's not going to widen. Like if you just attack his leverage, he's going to widen and you're going to run right into the out route. So you would attack his inside shoulder. You would attack the inside shoulder, try to get his hips to flip, and then you would slip underneath him. So a good gauge, a good thing for you to understand is that if you have a route away from the leverage, you want to attack his leverage. So if I'm running an inside route and he's outside leverage, I want to attack his outside leverage. If I'm running an outside route and he's inside leverage, I want to attack his inside leverage. And then if you have a route that is to the leverage, so if you have an outside breaking route against outside leverage, you would want to attack his opposite shoulder. So you'd want to attack the inside shoulder, try to get him to flip his hips. No different than if he was lined up inside shade and you had to run a post, you would attack his outside shoulder. Try to get him to flip those hips, then slip underneath. When he's an off man. When it's press, it's a little bit different. But that's how you would structure your off man routes. So fellas, make sure, third thing every wide receiver needs to know, you got to have a plan. You need a plan of action to be successful with what you're doing and to play fast. Because if you're thinking about a million different things and you don't have a set plan going in, you will play slow. And when we play slow, we will not be successful. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job attacking the leverage, using a move like a rocker step to widen this DB and then making that play over the middle. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback from you guys. It's always great to hear from you guys as usual. And again, you guys, if you would like a full 8-week wide receiver daily training schedule for the gym and on the field, over 500 plus exercises and drills contained in this thing, all access guide, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.